27,000 votes. Put Multnomah County in, and all
Here's
of a
update
sudden,
on
the measure
114,
passes
part
by
of it at least.
27,000 votes. What I'm suggesting to you is that while the measure did eke out a bare majority in 5 of the 36 counties, in one of them, the majority was so big that it overrode the no vote in the rest of the state. Now, I know that grinds on a lot of you. It grinds
Multnomah
on me.
County.
Same kind of thing happens in Washington state. You have a ballot measure vote. The whole state says no. King County says yes, and you get to suck it because King County calls all the shots. So what happened was a number of groups went right to court, and they said this Measure 114, a ban on buying guns that would be in effect as of a week ago. It was supposed to go into effect last Thursday. Thank God it did not. The judge in this case, Judge Rashio, in Harney County, Oregon, of all places, and from what I hear, the judge is a relatively liberal guy. But he looked at this thing and said, this thing violates the state constitution's prohibition on taking away the people's right to, as the Oregon Constitution puts it, keep and bear arms for the defense of themselves and of the state. It is worded, in at least in my opinion, much better than even the federal constitutional amendment in Amendment Number 2. Right? This is Section 120 and Article 1, Section 27 of the state constitution. So this wasn't decided based on the Second Amendment. It was based on the state constitution. And that temporary restraining order kept it from going into effect, which the other lawsuits that were brought in federal courts that were brought under the U.S. Constitution did not do. So Measure 114 has been on hold since last Thursday when it was scheduled to go into effect, except that parts of it, there were questions from the state of Oregon. The state of Oregon, which is not under Ellen Rosenblum, the Attorney General, acting in the best interest of the people.
Nope.
So the state said, well, what about the rest of it? Can we let the rest of it go into effect? Now, a lot of this is in legal language, but here's the bottom line. The bottom line is one of the most problematic parts of Measure 114 is it says, in the state of Oregon, from this point going forward, every single gun capable of holding more than 10 bullets or 10 shells, 10 rounds of ammunition, is illegal to sell. You can own it if you already own it at the time the law goes into effect, but you effectively can own it and use it at your own house. And that's it. Every other place in the state, it makes you a criminal if you go anywhere with that gun that holds more than 10 rounds. Well, guess what the judge has done? The court will issue a preliminary injunction under the Oregon Rule of Civil Procedure on ballot measure 114, section 11, known as the large capacity magazine prohibition, until a full trial can be held on what was known as the complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief. When somebody says, I'm going to bring a lawsuit, well, this is what a lawsuit is, a complaint for declaratory and injunctive relief. It's legal language for when somebody says, I'm going to sue and stop that. That's what they did. They sued to stop Measure 114, which includes a whole bunch of crazy provisions, including you have to get a permit to buy a gun. In other words, a permit to exercise a state and federal constitutional right. It'd be like, to me, it would be like saying you have to get a permit to go to church. You have to get a permit to own a Bible. You have to get a permit to engage in free speech. Oh, my goodness, I've got a talk radio show. What am I going to do? Do I have to go get a permit to be able to speak in public? To talk on the radio? It's one of the craziest ideas you'd ever consider. And then, on top of that, to get the permit, you have to take a class. You say, fine, where do I take it? And the police say, well, it doesn't exist yet. And we're not quite sure when it's going to exist. And you begin to smell a rat. And the rat is, you wanted to ban guns outright, but you knew you couldn't get away with it that way. So you said, well, we'll require everybody to have another background check. On top of the state police background check and the federal background check that you already have to buy a gun, we want another background check, and then you have to take a class, including a live fire exercise, which, by the way, nobody has figured out yet. They say we have to take this class and know everything.
How are you going to get your gun there?
Gun law, state gun law. You have to know about suicide. You have to know about homicide. You have to know about all these other things that are included in the class, and you have to do a live fire exercise where you go to the range and fire some rounds. You say, well, what gun can I use? Well, you're not allowed to use a gun. Well, what am I supposed to do? And I kid you not, some of the people behind Measure 114 literally said, well, maybe they can demonstrate their ability to lock and load, as they called it, using a plastic gun. I mean, this is how lunatic the left is to push these kinds of things. But the judge has now said, until we have the full hearing, the trial on the complaint, on the lawsuit that was brought, that's it. You're going to have to wait for that, and that I would predict is going to be months into 2023.
Yep.
So that's the good news today. A federal judge, a state judge, I should say, in Harney County has issued an order saying there is an injunction against, especially that part of Measure 114 that involves any gun or magazine capable, because this doesn't just include guns, because in the case of shotguns, there are shotguns that have a plug in the magazine, but the plug is easily removed, and they can hold more than 10 rounds. That means the gun
Or a lever action
is illegal
Yep.
because the magazine that is physically attached to the
it.
gun and necessary for its function holds more than 10 rounds. You say, well, does that make the gun illegal? Yes, it does. And is that a constitutional problem? Yes, it is. And now the judge has ruled that the magazine ban will not go into effect until a full trial is heard. Now, look, I've covered lots and lots of
but he's
trials,
still having a
criminal
hearing
trials,
on the
civil
23rd
trials
about the
over
permitting
years.
process.
This could go on literally
Yep.
for years. In fact, that knucklehead, the guy who's, thank God, leaving as district attorney of Deschutes County, John Hummel, said, well, we'll have this resolved by the courts in 2 or 3 years. Like, yeah, no big deal. Sorry, citizens, you lose your constitutional rights for 2 or 3 years, but you'll eventually get them back.
Sheep in Oregon.
I'm so glad to see John Hummel leave in Deschutes County. He has been a disaster as a prosecutor, maybe not as big a disaster as some of the other DAs in the Pacific Northwest, but he is a big disaster. And to have him talk so blithely about, well, citizens will lose their rights, but
Yeah, that guy
they'll get
was,
them back in a
he
couple,
was,
3 years.
I think he was a
Can you
Portland
imagine
DA at
such a
one
thought?
point.
In any case, glad to get your calls at 866
Yeah, anyway,
ORs. That's
There's
866
the update. It's still, I'm surprised Lars didn't say the judge scheduled the hearing for the 23rd when I listened to the court hearing the hearing the other day. That on the 23rd he's going to have a hearing on the permitting process. So I didn't know there was a full trial that was scheduled, and I don't know if it is scheduled or what. So, I mean, good small victory, but everything's still up in the air with the rest of the stupid damn bill that the idiots here in Oregon passed. So, thanks, Multnomah County, Portland area. Yeah, way to go, guys. All right, take care. Peace out, guys.